Hi guys, welcome to the first episode of Talk Crazy to Me. Today, my first guest is Melissa Lima, and here we go. So hi, Mel.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited, and I'm going to start off by saying how we know each other.
Sure.
Are you okay with that? Do
Yes.
you want to say it, or do you?
Well, we met in high school, so
We did meet in high school.
Yeah.
Grade
9, I think.
I feel like we bonded over Backstreet Boys.
Yes, and AJ.
I was a Brian.
I
you
was
were
an
an AJ. And we bonded over that. I actually started as an AJ and then went to a Brian.
I know, that's what I was saying. I'm like, I thought we loved the same guy.
Did love the same guy, and then I quickly changed to Brian and then stayed Brian for the rest of my life. So I'm still a Brian.
That's so funny.
But yeah, no, I'm that's what I remember. I remember
me
us
too.
talking about Backstreet Boys and but okay, so my first signature question, I'm just gonna go right and jump into it. You can answer it however you feel you want to. My first question is, what makes you crazy?
What makes me crazy? Oh my. Everything? What makes me
It could be simple, like from a pet peeve to more, but what makes you crazy? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I think life in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like the little things, the big things, all
Yeah,
the things in between?
all of the above. I mean, yeah, being a mom, being a wife, being a daughter. There's so many things in life that can make you crazy,
Yes.
right? I think the first time I ever really had depression was in the high school, when when groups of friends started how it was.
Drama.
It was always it was always catty.
Yeah.
And then they didn't want to hang out with you no more.
Yeah.
So I was really down then, but then life changes. Then you go through breakups and hardships and all that stuff. Yeah, I've had that, but with postpartum it was different. I had rage. It was a really strange. I had no idea that was even a thing. Yeah, until I looked it up.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea.
Right. No one had talked about it.
No. And these are not things you hear.
Right.
They say, oh, you have kids, you could have postpartum, but the postpartum you think of is oh, you're going to hurt your kid, or you don't bond with your child, or you're just sad all the time. That wasn't what I was experiencing.
Right.
I would literally feel like I was engulfed in anger.
Wow.
It was crazy.
That actually, I've never heard someone say that before.
It's crazy.
So you felt the rage and then you didn't know where it was coming from.
No, because I'm not that person.
Right. So it was out of the ordinary for you. It didn't feel normal. And then you got, just started to look it up and then found...
you go to your family doctor for I would go for my little one for her checkups, and then she'd ask me how I was doing, and then I was telling her, because it got to the point where I was starting to envision myself hurting myself.
Right.
And...
Which is a scary place to be.
Oh, yeah. Because I've never had those kind of thoughts.
Right.
Right. You don't put two and two together.
Right.
And when I would envision myself running into a wall and smashing my head against it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
so having not just thoughts, you were actually having visions.
Visions. Yeah.
Visions.
I could literally see myself. That's how angry I would get.
Right. Right.
And I'm I was never an angry person. I would be more one to cry than get angry.
Get angry.
So, it was really crazy. And then when I told my doctor, she put me on antidepressants. Yeah. And it made a world of a difference.
Really?
Yeah. Before then, I had no other mental health kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and it's crazy what your body goes through, right? Hormones wise.
Yep.
And that should be something that they tell women in general, even our coming of age coming up, right? Perimenopause.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff that's going to come with it. And then, and from what I understood, from 45 to 55, that's when women take their lives.
Really?
Because they're so depressed.
Wow.
Because of the change. Again, it's hormonal.
Changes. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And that's kind of scary.
Of course it is.
So we're not equipped to know these things.
No, we're not.
So it's one of those things, right?
But also doctors aren't equipped to know a lot about it either.
Right.
I would say 90% of the time I go to the doctor is mental health related. I'm pretty healthy physically otherwise. And I studied psychology so I have a pretty deep background in it.
Right.
And so it's very easy for me to see when I'm talking to someone that doesn't know what they're talking about.
Right.
So it's very hard to go to them, like family doctors, in my opinion, to get that kind of help.
Right.
Mostly because my experience has been that it wasn't helpful. And also, I went through the same thing as a woman. I don't have children, but I went through fertility treatment and the same shit, like with nobody telling you. And they knew all of my background, but nobody telling you what medications and treatments would do to you hormonally and mentally, right? Emotionally, all of those things.
Oh, yeah.
Because it has such an impact.
Because you're so charged.
You're so charged.
You're charged full of hormones that you don't typically have.
Right.
Right?
Right. But no one's thinking about telling you about
how you're going to feel.
How you're going to feel.
Yeah.
Not what physically is going to happen to you. Because they told me, diarrhea, vomiting, like those kind of symptoms. But I was like more asking, well, how am I going to feel?
Yeah, because when you're feeling good, you're feeling good.
Yeah.
And then when you're feeling down, you're feeling down. And it could take a split second 100%. For you to be from one aspect to the other. Like you could just jump. And that's the scary part of it all.
That's the scary part of putting anything into your body that's going to alter that.
Yeah.
And not know what it's going to do. Because that's exactly sort of what happened to me when I was trying to have a baby.
Yeah.
And it was just like, how is this not, how am I going to do this if this is what happens to me? Like I was in bed for 3 days. I couldn't get out of bed. I was super depressed. And I was like, I got to stop taking this. Like I know I'm trying to do this, but.
This was on the antidepressant?
This was on the fertility drug that they put me on as a sort of the initial.
To boost
make me drop an egg or something.
Yeah.
But it had such a really adverse effect on me emotionally. And I was
of course.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah.
So, but again, they're not telling you about they're not thinking about the mental side of things.
Right.
They're thinking about the physical.
Well, I guess they don't want to scare.
They don't.
They don't want to scare women into thinking that, if you do this could be a side effect.
Right.
But you want to have a baby,
want to know,
right?
But you
should know these things.
You also want to know the side effects, so
that
you can prepare for it.
Yeah.
You can prepare for it better.
Yeah, well, because even like when you're talking to your doctor, especially a fertility doctor, you can explain to them, this is what I'm feeling.
Of course.
What can we do?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a crazy thought.
Yeah. So then to go circle back.
Yeah.
The antidepressants worked for you? Like you found it helped?
I think it helped. I had to bump up once.
Sure.
So I'm still on a low dosage.
Yeah.
Like to this day, my daughter's almost 6. But I'm still on it. And like I had noticed there was a change. It wasn't as drastic as it was. But I've tried to get off of it. I need it. It's like once your body's gone through all those changes, there's, I don't know, like our bodies never go back.
Yeah.
Like having kids is trauma, even though it's a wonderful thing, but it is a trauma to our bodies.
100%.
And there's no, there's no going back from that.
No.
Like once you've had some sort of trauma in your life, there's no going back to who you were.
Right.
Originally. Right.
Yeah.
And not to say that, yes, it can be traumatic, but I mean like just within our bodies, it's a trauma. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because it could be like the most beautiful thing, but it's still a big thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course it is.
Like your whole body's going through this change.
Well, we always say like, oh, women are warriors and we can do that. And like I'm a big believer we are the warriors.
Oh, we are.
But there is sort of that other side. Yeah. And I haven't had a kid, so I can't speak to it. But I know just talking to other women that it's so much on us. But we like, again, there's a bit of the facade of like, we can handle this and we're strong and we were built this way. And I get that. But there's also like, we need to talk more about what happens that's negative so that women don't feel that shame, right? Like don't, when they are feeling like, I can't do this or, you know what I mean? Like to not feel that shame, that it's okay to also feel like I'm not handling it.
And like, even to this day, I have that gloomy cloud always over my head. Like, I'm not the wife I want to be. I'm not the sister, daughter, mother I want to be. Like I still have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that nagging thought is always there. Like I'm never doing enough.
Well, because we're so damn hard on ourselves. Always. Right? Like it's condition. I think it's a condition in women specifically that we are never enough, never good enough, never strong enough. Like, and we're always beating ourselves up that we could be better.
Yeah. Maybe. I don't know.
I do think
messed up.
a lot of people have that feeling. And it's how do we be kinder, right? Like how to ourselves. Because it starts there first. I think when we're kinder to ourselves first, then we start to be kinder to others. Yeah. But I think we try so hard to first be kinder to others before ourselves. But it really does start with starting to be kind to ourselves first. Yeah. And that's the hardest.
I'm definitely that.
Right?
I push it on to everyone else.
Yeah.
Like I will big you up till I'm off this planet. You know what I mean? Like I will big you up. But yeah, it's never us. Like we never turn it back on us. Like you need that big up too.
You do.
Like,
you do. Yeah.
You're going to be amazing. You can do this, you know?
It's funny. I was talking to my mom and I'm sure like everyone has an interesting complicated relationship with their mother. But my mom was always the one that sort of stifled my confidence a little bit. Like, and I think it's, again, that same idea that, you know, women can't be too confident and they're cocky or a bitch or something if they're too, like, you know, think good about themselves. Yeah. And so my mom always, when I was a kid, and still to this day, as I joke about it sometimes with her, will tell me that I'm conceited. She uses the word conceited. And I tell her, I'm like, Mom, like, it's actually confidence. Yeah. Like, I'm confident in myself sometimes. Don't tell me that, like, it's a negative. Yeah. But for her, because she sort of grew up in this generation where, especially where women didn't ever say anything nice about themselves, ever feel like they were confident in themselves.
Because you had to be quiet in the corner.
You had to be quiet. And I was always loud. And I was always bold and I was always brave. So that scared her, I think, of what was going to come into the world, like what was going to happen to me. So it's just interesting that, like, I still kind of, like, every time I say something good about myself, it's almost like I want to take it back and humble it a bit and, like, not say nice things about myself. But it's kind of my mom in my ear being like, nope, you're conceited. Don't say nice things about yourself. Let other people say it about you. But it's like, why can't I think it about myself, you know, like, and so I think I struggle. That's where mine comes from, I think, of trying to say nice things about myself. I always feel like I got to downplay it or put myself down or, you know what I mean? To just make other people feel comfortable, especially her. So I don't know. That just made me think of that when you were talking about having a hard time saying nice things about yourself.
Yeah, like I went through... Mostly, like, my dad's very critical. I mean, love the man. He's
of course.
Amazing. But, like, he's very critical.
Right.
Like, I could put on a few pounds. Yeah. And he's always making comments about it.
Yes, my dad's
like, okay, Dad, like, I get it. You know, but the thing is, the problem is, as, if our mental health is not in a good place and we're not feeling good about ourselves, there's no way... Like, it's hard to lose weight and all those things, right? Sure. Like, so there's so many aspects of, like, trying to better yourself, right? Yeah. But when you always have that in your ear.
Voice in your ear.
Right? It's just like your mom saying, hey, tone it down. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
So, like, again, I'm a grown-up now, so, like.
Well, you understand it better where it comes from.
Right.
I think as a kid, you don't get it. Like, a kid, you don't understand why they're saying things or why they feel the way they do. And then as you grow as an adult and understand your parents a little bit more, you know where they're coming from. And it's always a good place in some ways, but it's just like, it's the way they say it or how they say it. It's usually always a reflection of how they feel about themselves in some ways, but it comes out onto us.
It's always a critical comment.
Oh, yeah. My dad loved to make those comments, too. He loved
But I have a feeling it's like the European or like
I was gonna say that.
School
it's
way.
that
like,
old school, like, I know... Italian, Portuguese. Yep. I know they say they're so different, but like
no, they're the same.
Very
I married one,
right?
So I know.
They're. And I was going to say they always end up together too.
Yeah,
they complain and they fight about each other, but then they always end up sort of together. But it's so funny. But It very much reminds me of that. Like my dad was very old school, very like bold, said, you know, whatever came to his mind. And sometimes it was not very nice, right? So it would hurt my feelings. I remember he first commented on my when I got a mustache. When I started to get the hair growing, he's like, "Oh, you're starting to get a mustache." And I was like, and I was so upset.
You get offended.
I was like, cried. And then, of course, I immediately, that's when I first started to do it. I think it was Nair back then.
Oh my gosh.
Remember Nair? And like the smelly cream.
Yes.
I think that's what it was.
Oh
and
my
I
gosh.
used to do that and it burned and I had such sensitive skin. It was awful. So yeah, that was.
Yeah, it's that. Like it's those little nitpicking, even though they're not doing it to like hurt you. They're doing it in the background and it's always there. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'm trying not to do that with my girls.
Right.
Because especially with the like, being fat. Like, I don't use the word fat. I don't use the word skinny because I don't want them to get that. I don't want them to get that concept in their brain.
Yes.
Like, you're beautiful as you are.
Yeah.
Do you feel happy about yourself?
Yeah.
Do you look in the mirror and love what you see?
Totally.
That's all that matters.
Absolutely.
You know, you can wear 20 different colors.
Yeah.
I don't care. Mm-hmm. You know, you happy? Great. Like, perfect. I'm not going to like.
No, it does start really young.
Yeah.
If you don't.
Well, that's it.
It's very
I knew people that used to tell their daughters that they were chubby. And I'm like, how do you tell your daughter that they're chubby? Like, you don't want to put that in your, like, it stays with you.
Yeah. And also they hear what you say about yourself.
Oh, 100%.
Right? So I caught myself with my niece the other day when we were making a little TikTok cooking video.
Yeah, so cute.
And I was trying to like get the angle and like not like see my 3 chins and I was like saying something about like, oh, I'm being fat. And I said it out loud. And she was like, "You're fat?" And I was just like, ugh! And I wanted to rewind and take it back. And I realized what I'd said and it was too late.
Yeah.
But I had to say like, no, Auntie Tan's not fat. She shouldn't have said that. Like I had to try to like whatever. And she's almost 4. So
But still, you want to make sure.
But I wanted to sort of check myself and be more cautious.
Yes.
Because that's where it starts, right? Like I do remember my mom talking about her weight sometimes and the reflection of like that. Like it does, you do listen, like kids listen more than what you tell them. They're just observing and watching. And it's good that you're thinking of all those things as you're raising them. Because again, I think when you know better, you do better, right? So I think when you think of like how things affected you as a child and you're trying, like I always say, it's everybody's parents' job to try to better what they had, right? Yeah. So, and it's not a diss at your parents. No. It's not a jab. It's not a whatever. It's just okay, they did the best they could and now it's your job to do the best you can with what you know from them.
So I think they did what was best and what they could do at that time. Yeah. Versus now. Yeah. It's like a whole different world. Like we think about it, how we grew up. Our kids are not growing up the way we grew up.
Absolutely not.
They're growing up on a whole nother level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yes, maybe, they did do the best they could.
They definitely did.
But it's like, I don't know if they were as hard. Mental health was never a big thing. So they probably like, hid it under the carpet, and hid it well. But it's hard to hide it well.
But I think it's such a good point because that's sort of the point of this.
Yes.
Is because that generation spent not understanding it. And if they did understand any of it, they hid it because you had to hide it.
Yeah.
And people are still hiding it for sure. But I want people to know that the more you hide it, the more messed up you are.
Yep.
Right? The more the pretending to be okay all the time is what screws us up. That if you talk about it more, that if you start to understand it more, relate to people more, share it more, you realize that everybody has something that they struggle with.
Yep.
And the more you talk about it and realize that people can relate to you as opposed to just being in your own head thinking, I'm the craziest person there is, and there's nobody crazier than me.
Oh, yeah.
That's how you feel when you're alone in it, right? So I think that generation of not understanding mental health and not getting at, we're kind of getting to the point where we're understanding it more, but there's still so long to go. Like, there's still so much misconceptions, and people are afraid to say it out loud. So you coming to sit here as my first guest are the bravest soul you could be. No, because you are. Because it's so scary to just say it out loud, I think. Yeah. And the fact that you were so willing to do it and say it out loud is just, I just think it's the coolest thing ever.
Thank you.
And you should just kind of pat yourself on the back. I'll pat you on the back. And just know that that's such a, like, it's not an easy thing to say it out loud. But my hope is that everybody leaves here feeling like, like that felt good to just talk about it, say it, not be afraid.
Yeah.
And that part of like ending that stigma is talking about it more.
This is why we talk about it.
And
that's why I posted about postpartum rage, because nobody knew what postpartum rage was.
Yeah.
And probably still don't know to this day, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's really good for us to be honest and open about what we're dealing with and spread it out to the world, right?
Why not?
Like that's like there's no harm in doing that.
No, I don't think so. I think there's only good in doing it, to be honest.
Yeah.
It'll only, like I said, this is episode 1, but I'm hoping it's a trickle effect of like
for sure.
snowballs of people just being like, okay, now I want to talk about it. Now I want to talk about it. And that it does make you feel better to just get it off your chest, open up, and, see where life takes you.
For sure.
Thank you so much for coming. Honestly, this was exactly what I wanted to be. You as my first guest, you made it so comfortable.
Oh, thank you.
I love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that's it. Episode 1. That's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining, guys. I honestly hope you keep it up. So thanks, guys. Bye.